Alright, so this video is about standard deviation. I have a lot of questions about it, where to anchor it, where to target, what it even means, and I'm just going to go over that today. So, standard deviation measures where price is likely to see reaction, and that's reversals, is what we want to see from standard deviation, and it tells us where to get involved in price action. So, first of all, how do you anchor it? Right? So you anchor your standard deviation on manipulation legs, right? So we see this accumulation here, right? We're accumulating. We see this distribution. Now, this not only sweeps the highs of this accumulation right after this manipulation leg, price then reverses down and breaks structure, right? It breaks structure here. So if we saw something like this, right, we're accumulating, we distribute, we come down here, and then we keep going, right? That's not we didn't we didn't break structure after, right? So we just kept going. We want to see price. What am I doing? We want to see price accumulate, manipulate, sweep these highs of the accumulation. Then we want it to distribute lower and break structure, right? And then once we break structure, obviously then we can start looking for entries. All right. Same thing with longs, right? We accumulate, right? We distribute, we're sweeping the lows, and then or we manipulate and we sweep these lows, then we distribute, breaking that structure. And that's what makes this the manipulation leg that we can anchor our standard deviation, right? So to anchor it, right, if we're manipulating down to go up, we draw it from the bottom to the top of the leg, and that gives us our zones. And then if we're doing it from a manipulation leg up, we take it from the top to the bottom of the leg, right? Now, what do these zones even mean? So first of all, obviously we have our anchor zone here. Here, I'll draw this out right here. So we have obviously the zone that we anchor with, right? This zone right here, the 1 and the 0. So we're marking it from the let's just say the shorts in this because we're marking it from the high of the manipulation leg to low of the manipulation leg, and that would be our 1 and 0, right? So now what are we looking for? So our -2 to -2.5, that will be our first reversal, right? So this would be our first levels, our first zone, where we would be looking for our first reversal, or we could be looking to take profits here, right? Now, our max expansion, that would be -4, -4.5, right? So if we've gone through, right, let's say we're accumulating, we distribute up here, or that's a bad example because this needs to be our manipulation leg up. So wrong thing again. So we're accumulating, we distribute or we manipulate, and then we start to distribute down. Around this -1 zone, we can have accumulation, right? So we might accumulate a little bit down there, and then we go into this -2 zone, and that would be our first possible reversal, right? So we would be looking for things like SMTs, order blocks, rejection blocks that align with this -2 zone, right? If we see a reaction there, that could be our first reversal. Or we continue down all the way to max expansion, right? We come all the way down here to the -4s. And then we would also be looking for the same things. Lows, highs, rejection blocks, order blocks, fair value gaps, previous things and confluences that we can align with these -4 zones, and this would be our max expansion. And then we come down here, and then we catch the reversal all the way back up, right? So those are our zones. We have our anchor zone. We have maybe a little bit more accumulation around the -1. All right, and then we have our first reversal zone around -2, and then we have our max expansion around -4, right? So that's all it is to it. So let me go ahead and try and find a good example of this. All right, here we go. Here's a good example. All right, so we see, let me go ahead and delete all this. We see this accumulation right here, right? So that's accumulation. We have this manipulation here, this leg up, and then we have our distribution. Now, the key thing, we see this distribution break structure. So that's how we know that this is a valid manipulation leg here. So we would mark our standard deviation. All right. So what are we looking for? All right. We see our manipulation down. We see our distribution down. We see our breaker structure. We come down here, the -1 zone. Yeah, we're consolidating a little bit more, right? We blow straight past the -2, -2.5 zone. Look at this here. The -4s align right with this low, and also this rejection block here, right? So what do we see? We come all the way down to the 4, and then we see a little rejection back up. Obviously, it just continued to dump, but we could use these as take profits. Again, with my OTE strategy, this could have been a possible setup. Here, we come in, we accumulate, we manipulate, we distribute down, we mark our OTE. This aligns with this order block. We enter here, we short, and we can target our -4 zone. Here, and we can target our -4 standard deviation zone. And that would be how you use this as a target instead of a reversal point. And I mean, it's still a reversal point. You're just not trying to enter off the reversal, you're trying to exit at the reversal. So you get your manipulation leg, your distribution, all right? You're using these as targets, right? You draw your OTE. I know this video isn't about OTE, but I will make one right after this. Or I mean, I already have a couple about it, but I'm gonna make another one. You draw out your OTE, aligns with this order block. Let's see, you enter right here. You have your stop right above, and then you can go ahead and target the -4s because it aligns right with that low, right? So you could say you would possibly have a reversal or reaction to this -4 because of this low. So you could just target the low there. All right. Let me try and find another example. All right, right here. No. Here we go. All right. We see this 5-minute consolidation. We see this leg down that manipulates, right? And then we see right after this leg manipulates, we break structure without going any higher, right? So now this could be our zones here. We mark it from, because this would be projecting higher, right? We mark it from the low to the high, and then that gives us our zones, right? What do we see? We go all the way up to the -1, and we see a little bit more consolidation, and looks like only went to that one, and then we see a reversal, right? So that's how you would anchor it. You see the consolidation, manipulation, break of structure, mark the manipulation leg, and then you have your zones. In this case, it didn't go all the way to your first reversal zone or your max expansion, but you did see it went to that -1 and consolidated and didn't make it past, right? Where's another example? All right, here you see your 5-minute consolidation. You see manipulation up. Let me make this gray. You see your consolidation. You see your manipulation. And then you see your breaker structure down, right? So now your leg would be here, right? And this is a pretty good example, I guess, because you see reactions to every zone. So we come down, we're around this -1. We see, I mean, I guess we kind of consolidated the whole way, but we see a little bit more of a reaction around this -1. We go down, we tap the -2, we see another little reaction. All right, we keep going, consolidating, max expansion, right? And then we start to reverse with our consolidation, right? And we start to go up. Let me find another example. Here's a good one. Right? So we see our consolidation, we see our manipulation, and then we see our distribution. Let me make these easier to see. So we see our consolidation, we manipulate those lows, then we go and break structure after the manipulation. So you can draw your levels out here from this leg down. All right. We see around the -1, we blow past -2, -4, max expansion, and then we start to reverse down, and then we go all the way down here. All right. Let's do one more example. We get, here we go. We see this. No, that's not a good example. Oh, this is actually a good. This is good. All right. So here, right, we just see consolidation all the way through. Or let's go to 4-hour candles. Let's go ahead and do that. So we have, let's go to the 10 a.m. candle here. All right, so 10 a.m. candle forms, right? Because this is AMD, so it makes sense if we do use 4 hours, right? So 10 a.m. candle, right? We consolidate. We don't manipulate down. We just go straight into distribution, right? So we don't see any manipulation on, or we're consolidating 10 a.m. we already distributed without manipulation, right? So where would you mark that if you like had to mark it, right? I don't, that's a bad, this is a really bad example. I thought 10 o'clock was over here. Let me find a different one. I should have picked out examples before. All right, here we go. All right, we see our consolidation right here. All right, we see our manipulation leg here. Now, it didn't sweep this high. After this consolidation, we go down, we manipulate up, right? This could have been our manipulation like here if we broke structure. But all we did was sweep the highs and we break then we break structure here, right? So we mark our manipulation leg from the top to the bottom, and then we start going down, right? We get to the -1, we kind of consolidate a little bit more. We go down straight to the -2s. What do you see? Boom, reversal all the way up. So this is one where instead of drawing that OTE, you don't have any OTE levels. You can wait and use these as entry points for reversals. We get this candle, as soon as we get this rejection candle, You could enter here, small stops at that high, and then target wherever you think a good target is. This high right here, and then bang, there's a little 1 to 10. All right, so that standard deviation, or how you anchor it, and possible ways to use it as targets or entry points. All it is AMD. Once again, you accumulate, right? You manipulate, and then you distribute, and that's literally all it is. And then you mark the manipulation out, and then it gives you your deviations to use as targets or entries. So there's that. Let me know if you have any more questions.